If you're new, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the most powerful ideas that shape success and influence in life. And hey, if you find value in this video, don't forget to smash that like button and share it with your friends who might need to hear this. Also, if you want to support the channel, the super thanks and donate options below are always open. Every bit helps us keep bringing you the best content. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in the world don't always rush to speak? In fact, many of the greatest leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers seem to have mastered the art of saying less, but with much greater impact. Today, we're uncovering one of the most underestimated secrets of power and influence: the power of selective silence. You might be wondering, why silence? In a world flooded with noise where everyone is shouting their opinions, sharing every thought, and competing for attention, how can silence possibly be a weapon? Well, it's not just about being quiet. It's about knowing exactly when to speak and, more importantly, when to hold your tongue. This subtle skill has been quietly shaping the destinies of leaders for centuries, from Renaissance thinkers like Machiavelli to modern-day icons like Steve Jobs and Warren Buffett. Stick with me, because in this video, you'll learn not only the theory behind why silence is powerful, but also practical ways you can apply this art in your daily life, career, and relationships. We'll break down real-life stories of famous leaders who used silence strategically, analyze how this skill helped them gain control and respect, and show you how to develop this powerful habit yourself. So get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about communication and power. Because once you understand the art of selective silence, you'll never look at conversations or your own voice the same way again. If you're as excited as I am to unlock this secret, hit that like button, share this video with someone who could use a little less noise and a lot more wisdom, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights that can change your life. Let's get started. Why do the most powerful people often choose silence over speech? In a world dominated by constant noise, from social media rants to endless news cycles and unfiltered opinions, the value of silence is increasingly overlooked. Yet, history and strategy repeatedly show that those who master the art of knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet wield a unique kind of power that few others possess. This power is subtle but immense. It shapes influence, controls narratives, and often decides the outcome of crucial moments in politics, business, and personal relationships. One of the earliest and most insightful explorers of this concept was Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance-era political philosopher whose works still resonate today. Known primarily for his treatise The Prince, Machiavelli was more than just a cold political realist. He was a keen observer of human behavior and power dynamics. And among his many strategic prescriptions was the critical importance of selective silence. Machiavelli understood that silence is not merely the absence of words, but a powerful tool in itself, a way to maintain control, create mystery, and avoid vulnerability. Consider the modern world, where everyone feels pressured to voice opinions loudly and immediately. Social media platforms reward the quickest and the loudest voices, often at the expense of nuance or reflection. In this noisy environment, silence can be misunderstood as passivity or weakness. But as Machiavelli and countless strategic thinkers have demonstrated, silence, when wielded intentionally, can be a formidable asset. At its core, selective silence is about control. When you choose not to reveal your thoughts or intentions too soon, you prevent others from using that information against you. This is especially true in politics and negotiations, where premature disclosure can weaken your position. Machiavelli advised rulers to be cautious with their words, for every utterance is a risk. Speaking carelessly might expose plans, reveal doubts, or give opponents ammunition. In contrast, silence can protect one's inner strategy, keeping adversaries guessing and maintaining a psychological edge. Take, for example, the famous political strategist Richard Nixon. His public silence and controlled messaging during tense periods of the Cold War helped project an image of calm and calculated leadership. Nixon's carefully measured words contrasted with his private political maneuvering, illustrating Machiavelli's point. Sometimes, the most effective communication is what you leave unsaid. In business, the lesson is just as relevant. Steve Jobs, the iconic founder of Apple, was renowned not only for his visionary ideas, but also for his meticulous control over what information was shared and when. Jobs famously maintained a tight lid on product developments until launch events, building anticipation and mystique. His silence about Apple's projects fostered curiosity and excitement, amplifying the impact of his public statements. This strategic use of silence created a powerful narrative, allowing Apple to dominate markets with not just innovative products, but also an aura of exclusivity and control. The concept extends into everyday life as well. Imagine a heated argument where one person continually interrupts and dominates the conversation, while the other listens quietly. The silent listener gains an advantage as they absorb information, identify weaknesses in the opponent's position, and respond with carefully crafted remarks. The power of silence here lies in its ability to disrupt expectations and force others to reveal more than they intend. It is essential to recognize that Machiavelli's advocacy for selective silence does not mean promoting deceit or manipulation. Instead, it encourages thoughtful communication, where words are weighed carefully for maximum impact and minimum risk. Speaking at the right moment, with the right message, can be far more powerful than constant chatter. Silence preserves that moment's significance. Another reason selective silence is powerful is that it creates an aura of mystery. When people do not know everything about your thoughts or plans, they tend to project their own assumptions, fears, or respect onto you. This uncertainty can elevate your perceived power. For example, Vladimir Putin's famously reserved public persona contributes to an image of inscrutability and strategic mastery. His silence on certain issues leaves analysts and rivals guessing, which can be as advantageous as any public declaration. On the psychological level, silence also commands respect. People naturally pay more attention to those who speak less but with precision. It suggests confidence and control, qualities that attract followers and discourage opposition. In contrast, those who speak too much or too hastily often undermine their credibility or appear insecure. Yet, mastering the art of selective silence is not about being aloof or disconnected. It requires acute awareness of social cues and timing. Knowing when to break the silence is as important as knowing when to maintain it. Speaking up at the right time can turn the tide of a negotiation or rally a group toward a common goal. This balance between silence and speech is where true communication mastery lies. This delicate balance can be seen in the world of diplomacy. For instance, during delicate international negotiations, diplomats often remain silent on certain issues to avoid escalation or reveal strategic intentions. The famous Cuban Missile Crisis negotiations in 1962 highlighted how silence and carefully chosen words helped the world avoid nuclear catastrophe. Both the United States and the Soviet Union employed deliberate silence at critical moments to buy time and avoid premature moves. In today's corporate environment, the principle also holds. Leaders who flood meetings with unnecessary chatter risk diluting their authority and losing their team's attention. Conversely, those who listen actively and speak decisively tend to inspire trust and drive effective action. Consider Warren Buffett, whose reputation as the Oracle of Omaha is partly due to his deliberate, thoughtful communication style. Buffett often emphasizes listening more than speaking, valuing the information gathered in silence to inform wise investment decisions. It is also worth noting that silence plays a vital role in self-regulation and emotional intelligence. When faced with provocation or criticism, choosing silence over immediate reaction prevents escalation and preserves one's dignity. This aligns with Machiavelli's broader view on power, not merely the power to dominate, but the power to maintain composure and long-term advantage. The danger of ignoring the power of silence can be seen all around us. Consider the many public figures who have suffered backlash for speaking too hastily on social media, revealing more than intended or contradicting themselves. The impulse to respond quickly and loudly often leads to missteps that silence would have prevented. This contemporary example underscores Machiavelli's centuries-old wisdom. Moreover, the power of silence is amplified by cultural norms. In some cultures, silence is highly valued as a sign of respect, wisdom, or authority. In East Asian traditions, for example, silence often carries deep communicative weight and signals thoughtful deliberation, and withhold comment until the moment is right. To practice selective silence, one must cultivate patience and self-awareness. This involves developing the ability to listen deeply, resist the urge for immediate expression, and observe the context and emotional landscape. It also means recognizing that silence can communicate as loudly as words, sometimes even louder. A pause before responding can create anticipation and signal that one is considering the matter seriously. Finally, in an age where information flows relentlessly and the pressure to constantly share opinions is immense, selective silence offers a refuge, a space for clarity, strategy, and control. Machiavelli's insight teaches us that power is not just about what we say, but also what we choose not to say. Harnessing this power requires discipline, but rewards with greater influence and respect. In sum, the art of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent remains as vital today as it was in Machiavelli's time. By embracing selective silence, we gain a tool that can protect us, empower us, and elevate our presence in any sphere of life. The loudest voices may grab attention, but the quiet ones often steer the course. Niccolò Machiavelli, born in 1469 in Florence, Italy, is often regarded as one of the most influential political thinkers in Western history. As a diplomat, philosopher, and historian during the Renaissance, his experiences shaped his pragmatic and often stark views on power, leadership, and human nature. Unlike the idealistic philosophers who envisioned politics as a realm of virtue and justice, Machiavelli viewed politics through the lens of realism, emphasizing effectiveness and survival over morality. Machiavelli's political philosophy, especially as articulated in his most famous work, The Prince, centers on the idea that rulers must be shrewd and pragmatic, sometimes resorting to cunning, manipulation, or even cruelty to maintain power and stability. While his name has become synonymous with ruthless tactics, the core of his advice is about understanding the true nature of power and acting accordingly. Within this framework, Machiavelli recognized the crucial role that communication or the lack thereof plays in governance and strategy. One of the most compelling, yet sometimes overlooked aspects of Machiavelli's thought is his emphasis on the strategic use of silence. He understood that in the game of power, silence can be as potent a weapon as speech. This selective silence serves multiple purposes. It conceals intentions, preserves mystery, and prevents opponents from exploiting weaknesses. For Machiavelli, knowing when to remain silent was not passive submission, but an active and deliberate tactic that any astute leader must master. In Machiavelli's view, words have power. Speaking recklessly or too freely can undermine a leader's position. By contrast, one of Machiavelli's favorite historical figures and a primary example in The Prince, Borgia's political and military campaigns were marked not only by bold action, but also by measured discretion. He was known for withholding information and communicating only what served his objectives. Machiavelli admired this approach because it combined strength with strategic silence, allowing Borgia to maintain control over his reputation and resources. His silence on certain matters made him unpredictable and thus more formidable to his enemies. Machiavelli's emphasis on silence also ties into his broader understanding of human psychology. He recognized that people are naturally inclined to fill gaps in knowledge with assumptions, often amplifying fears or respect for the unknown. By remaining silent or vague, a leader can manipulate these perceptions to their advantage, cultivating an image of power that might exceed their actual strength. This creates a psychological barrier that can deter challenges before they even arise. Another element of Machiavelli's thought is the idea that silence can be a form of self-preservation. In a court or political arena rife with intrigue, speaking too much or revealing inner thoughts can expose a ruler to betrayal or manipulation. Silence serves as a protective shield, a way to keep enemies in the dark and limit their ability to strike effectively. In this way, silence is not just about what is said, but also about controlling what remains unsaid, a crucial distinction. While Machiavelli's ideas emerge from the specific context of Renaissance Italy's ruthless politics, their applicability transcends time and culture. His insight into the power of selective silence remains highly relevant in contemporary society, where information flows freely and the impulse to share thoughts instantly is stronger than ever. Today, political leaders, business executives, and even everyday individuals face the challenge of navigating a world where every word can be recorded, shared, and analyzed in real time. In modern politics, for example, the strategic use of silence can be seen in how leaders handle sensitive topics or crises. Barack Obama was often praised for his measured responses and reluctance to rush into statements, especially during volatile situations. His silence allowed him to gather information, avoid missteps, and present a more authoritative voice when he did choose to speak. This approach echoes Machiavelli's counsel that timing and discretion in communication can be more valuable than constant verbal engagement. In the corporate world, CEOs like Tim Cook have inherited the mantle of strategic communication from predecessors like Steve Jobs, who famously kept product plans and company strategies under wraps until the right moment. Cook's deliberate communication style, often marked by thoughtful pauses and carefully crafted messages, reflects an understanding of silence's power. By not revealing too much too soon, leaders maintain competitive advantages and build anticipation, a direct application of Machiavelli's principles. The modern digital age, characterized by relentless social media activity and constant connectivity, often pressures individuals to fill every silence with noise. Yet, those who understand Machiavelli's wisdom recognize the value in restraint. Silence becomes a form of discipline, a way to maintain clarity and influence amid the chaos. It requires confidence not to respond impulsively and strength to accept that sometimes saying nothing speaks volumes. From a personal development perspective, the power of selective silence also enhances emotional intelligence. Choosing silence over reaction can prevent unnecessary conflicts and preserve one's integrity. This aligns with Machiavelli's pragmatic stance on power, not as a blunt force, but as a nuanced, controlled practice. Silence can disarm critics, deflect provocation, and create space for strategic thinking. While some might misinterpret Machiavelli's endorsement of silence as endorsing deception, it is more accurate to view it as promoting strategic communication. Machiavelli did not advocate dishonesty for its own sake, but rather encouraged leaders to communicate in ways that protect their interests and achieve their goals effectively. This subtlety is what makes his ideas enduringly valuable. In essence, Machiavelli laid the groundwork for understanding silence as a critical element of leadership and power. His teachings suggest that what you do not say can be just as impactful as what you do. This is a lesson that transcends his era and remains highly relevant in the 21st century, where the ability to control one's narrative amid overwhelming information is a key to success. Reflecting personally, I believe Machiavelli's vision on the art of selective silence offers profound insights for our modern world. In an era overwhelmed by information overload, where people often mistake verbosity for intelligence or influence, Machiavelli reminds us that restraint and thoughtful silence can carve out real authority. Silence demands patience, awareness, and discipline, qualities that many aspire to but few truly master. Moreover, selective silence is a powerful equalizer. It levels the playing field between the loud and the thoughtful, the impulsive and the strategic. By controlling what is said and what is withheld, individuals can shape perceptions, protect vulnerabilities, and ultimately, exercise control over their personal and professional domains. In sum, Machiavelli's nuanced understanding of silence as a strategic tool challenges the modern obsession with constant communication. His lessons urge us to reconsider the weight of our words, the timing of our speech, and the power of what remains unsaid. This perspective remains not only relevant, but essential in navigating the complexities of today's social, political, and professional landscapes. If anything, Machiavelli's insights on selective silence encourage us to cultivate patience and strategic thinking, qualities that will empower us to engage more effectively with the world, speaking not to fill the void, but to command attention and respect when the moment truly calls for it. Silence is often underestimated in a world that seems to celebrate constant communication. However, it is one of the most potent tools of power, functioning as a shield, a sword, and a strategic advantage all at once. The ability to wield silence effectively goes far beyond mere quietness. It serves to protect strength, preserve secrets, and create an invisible yet formidable edge over opponents. This dynamic makes silence not just a passive absence of speech, but an active, deliberate weapon in the arsenal of anyone seeking to maintain or expand their influence. At its core, silence helps protect power by limiting the information available to others. In any competitive environment, whether in politics, business, or interpersonal relationships, knowledge is power, but so is the control over what knowledge others can access. When a leader or strategist chooses silence, they deliberately withhold insights, intentions, or weaknesses. This creates a layer of opacity around their actions, making it difficult for adversaries to anticipate moves or formulate effective counter-strategies. The fewer details shared, the fewer vulnerabilities exposed. This principle of protection through silence has been a foundation of strategic thinking for centuries. Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese military strategist, emphasized the importance of deception and unpredictability in warfare, which are closely linked to controlled communication. Machiavelli, following centuries later, echoed similar ideas. Controlling the flow of information, including when to speak and when to remain silent, is a key to maintaining power. The protection of secrets is not merely defensive. It can be offensive, creating uncertainty that opponents struggle to navigate. On a psychological level, silence operates by generating mystery and ambiguity, which are powerful forces in human perception. When someone remains silent, others instinctively attempt to fill the void with assumptions, guesses, or even fears. This ambiguity creates an aura of unpredictability, making it harder for others to gauge true intentions or emotional states. The silent individual, therefore, gains a psychological advantage by positioning themselves as an enigma, a figure not fully understood or readied for exploitation. This phenomenon is particularly evident in negotiations. When one party remains deliberately quiet after an offer or statement, the other side often becomes uncomfortable and feels compelled to reveal more or adjust their position to fill the conversational gap. This silent pressure can yield concessions or valuable information without the silent party ever saying a word. In this way, silence acts as a psychological lever, shifting the dynamics of power without overt force. The creation of mystery through silence also serves to elevate status. People naturally gravitate toward what they do not fully understand, and silence can imbue an individual with a sense of depth or gravitas. This is why many respected leaders, artists, or public figures are known for their measured speech or occasional reticence. Their silence invites respect, curiosity, and sometimes even fear emotions that can consolidate their influence. Consider the example of Steve Jobs, who mastered the art of silence as part of his leadership style. His reticence around product details before launch generated enormous anticipation and excitement. By not divulging everything, Jobs maintained control over the narrative and the market's expectations, demonstrating that silence can create an invisible power that speech alone cannot achieve. Silence also functions as a powerful tool for maintaining composure and controlling emotional energy. In situations charged with conflict or tension, speaking impulsively often leads to mistakes, loss of credibility, or unintended concessions. Silence allows a person to gather their thoughts, assess the environment, and respond deliberately. This control over one's own reactions can project strength and confidence, influencing how others perceive and interact with them. On the flip side, too much talk can diminish power by overexposure. When people reveal too much information or speak too frequently, they inadvertently provide openings for critique, challenge, or manipulation. The excessive use of words could dilute the impact of what is actually important, making it easier for opponents to ignore or counter the message. Silence, by contrast, concentrates attention and imbues communication with weight and significance. From a strategic standpoint, silence functions as an invisible boundary. It defines what is off-limits and sets the terms for engagement. Those who control the silence dictate the rhythm and flow of interaction, effectively shaping the playing field. This is evident in political arenas, where careful pauses or refusal to answer certain questions can frustrate opponents and shift public perception. Silence can signal strength and resolve, conveying that the speaker is not easily rattled or forced into premature disclosures. The role of silence in maintaining secrecy cannot be overstated. In espionage, corporate strategy, and high-stakes negotiations, what remains unsaid is often the most valuable currency. The careful management of silence protects trade secrets, confidential plans, or sensitive alliances. Leakage of such information can be devastating, so silence functions as a critical safeguard for operational integrity. Psychologically, humans have a natural discomfort with uncertainty and ambiguity, making silence an effective tool for those who understand how to wield it. The tension created by silence prompts others to reveal their own thoughts or weaknesses prematurely. This dynamic was famously exploited by legendary negotiators and interrogators who used silence as a pressure tactic. By simply withholding response, they created an emotional imbalance that compelled the other party to speak more openly. My personal view is that silence is the ultimate form of control in any competitive interaction. It is a way to own the narrative by not surrendering it through excessive speech. In many ways, silence is like a powerful chess move, less flashy than a bold attack, but crucial for setting traps and maintaining strategic positioning. The ability to maintain silence when others are eager to fill every pause with noise reflects a high level of discipline, confidence, and awareness. Moreover, silence creates space for thought, for recalibration, and for strategic planning. It allows individuals to step back from emotional reactions and approach situations with clarity and intention. This mental space is invaluable because decisions made under pressure or haste rarely produce optimal results. By contrast, silence enables a controlled, measured approach that can outlast impulsiveness. It's also important to recognize that silence can be a form of respect and power in social contexts. Choosing not to speak immediately signals that one is listening, valuing the other person's words, and considering a thoughtful response. This respect often translates into increased influence because people tend to respond positively to those who demonstrate patience and restraint. On the contrary, those who dominate conversations or rush to fill silences often appear insecure or desperate for attention. This behavior can alienate allies and embolden opponents. Silence, therefore, helps maintain dignity and authority. It keeps others guessing and prevents the speaker from being easily categorized or dismissed. Real-world examples abound. Consider the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, known for her deliberate, measured speech. Her thoughtful pauses and succinct delivery conveyed immense authority and intellect. She didn't need to speak loudly or frequently to command respect. Her silence was as commanding as her words. In business, Warren Buffett's approach offers another illustration. Buffett is famously a man of few words, preferring to listen carefully and speak only when necessary. His silence during meetings allows him to absorb more information, evaluate risks better, and make wiser decisions. This quiet demeanor has been key to his success and longevity in the volatile world of investing. In politics, Barack Obama's calm and deliberate speaking style often incorporated strategic silences that underscored his points more effectively than a flood of words would have. These moments of pause invited reflection and lent gravity to his message. Even in everyday life, mastering silence can shift dynamics profoundly. In a heated conversation, remaining silent while others argue can defuse tension and demonstrate control. It forces others to confront their own words and often leads to more reasoned dialogue. In sum, silence functions as a powerful weapon by protecting strength, preserving secrets, and generating strategic advantages. It creates psychological barriers through mystery and unpredictability, forcing opponents into disadvantageous positions. My firm belief is that silence is the ultimate control mechanism in any game of power, enabling those who master it to guide outcomes with subtlety and precision rather than brute force. The art of knowing when to be silent, therefore, is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop to maintain influence and navigate complex social, political, or business landscapes. In every sphere of life, politics, business, or personal relationships, knowing when to speak and when to remain silent is an art form that can dramatically influence outcomes. It's not simply about choosing to talk or stay quiet randomly, but rather about making deliberate decisions based on context, stakes, and the potential consequences. This art of selective speech, knowing exactly when to vocalize your thoughts and when to withhold them, can elevate a person's influence, protect their interests, and foster stronger relationships. Conversely, misjudging these moments can lead to misunderstandings, lost opportunities, and sometimes irreversible damage. In politics, timing and discretion in communication can mean the difference between gaining support and losing it, between diffusing tensions and escalating conflicts. Politicians operate in an arena where every word is scrutinized and often weaponized by opponents or the media. For example, during election campaigns, candidates must carefully craft their messages, speaking enough to connect with voters and articulate their platforms, but not so much as to reveal vulnerabilities or inconsistencies that opponents could exploit. Barack Obama is often cited for his masterful use of measured speech, knowing when to address an issue openly and when silence or vague responses serve better. During the early years of his presidency, he avoided premature comments on controversial topics until he had fully assessed the political landscape, demonstrating how selective speech supports strategic governance. On the flip side, political figures who speak impulsively or reveal too much often find themselves embroiled in scandals or losing public trust. A recent example is when political leaders make off-the-cuff remarks on social media without considering the broader impact. These moments of unchecked speech can spiral into crises, damaging reputations that took years to build. This highlights the necessity of mastering the art of selective speech, not just what you say, but when and how you say it. In the business world, the principle is equally critical. CEOs, managers, and entrepreneurs must navigate high-stakes environments where information leaks can jeopardize competitive advantage. Steve Jobs, the late co-founder of Apple, exemplified this art perfectly. He was famously tight-lipped about product developments, sharing only carefully curated information at the right moments. Jobs understood that premature disclosure would undermine Apple's market power and diminish the impact of product launches. His selective speech created anticipation and excitement, effectively turning silence into a marketing tool. By controlling the narrative and timing of communication, Jobs elevated Apple's brand and set the company apart as an innovator with a mystique that competitors struggled to penetrate. More broadly, in negotiations, knowing when to speak is just as important as what to say. Experienced negotiators often use strategic pauses or silence to pressure the opposing side into revealing more information or making concessions. This tactic is about psychological leverage, using the discomfort of silence to shift power dynamics. Leaders who master this know that immediate responses aren't always necessary. Sometimes silence forces the other party to fill the void with their own disclosures, providing valuable insights and strategic advantage. Even outside high-profile arenas like politics and business, the art of selective speech plays a vital role in personal relationships. Conflicts, misunderstandings, and emotional exchanges often spiral because one or both parties fail to manage their words thoughtfully. Choosing to listen more and speak less in heated moments can prevent escalation and build mutual respect. Silence here is not indifference, but a deliberate choice to foster understanding. For instance, in counseling or mediation settings, facilitators encourage participants to pause before responding, allowing emotions to settle and enabling more constructive dialogue. This mirrors Machiavelli's principle that knowing when to hold one's tongue is a mark of wisdom and control. The famous entrepreneur Elon Musk also illustrates this balance in communication. Musk is known for his candidness and bold statements on social media, which have sometimes led to controversies and legal challenges. However, he has also demonstrated restraint by choosing not to comment publicly on certain sensitive issues until the time is right. This selective silence protects his business interests and helps manage public perception, showing that even outspoken figures recognize the value of measured speech. From a personal perspective, mastering selective speech enhances one's value in any social or professional setting. When you speak deliberately, your words carry more weight and credibility. People listen more attentively because they perceive your speech as thoughtful and intentional rather than impulsive or self-serving. This elevates your status and influence. Conversely, speaking indiscriminately or too frequently often dilutes your message and can expose you to unnecessary risks, such as being misinterpreted or offending others unintentionally. Selective speech also serves as a form of self-protection. In environments rife with competition or gossip, revealing too much personal information or candid opinions can lead to vulnerabilities that others might exploit. By choosing when to share and when to withhold, you maintain control over your narrative and protect your boundaries. This is especially crucial in workplaces where politics and power struggles are common. Leaders who master this skill tend to build more sustainable careers and avoid unnecessary conflicts. The process of learning when to speak and when to remain silent is ongoing and requires self-awareness, empathy, and emotional intelligence. It involves reading the room, understanding the stakes, and recognizing the personalities involved. For example, in a meeting, some moments call for vocal contribution to influence direction, while others require listening to gather information and build consensus. Misreading these cues can lead to missed opportunities or alienation. Furthermore, cultural context significantly influences the art of selective speech. In some cultures, direct and open communication is valued, while in others, indirectness and restraint are signs of respect and wisdom. Understanding these nuances is vital for effective communication in globalized environments. Leaders who adapt their speech patterns accordingly demonstrate cultural intelligence and gain broader respect. In practical terms, developing selective speech means cultivating patience and the ability to pause before responding. It means resisting the urge to fill every silence with words and recognizing that sometimes saying less achieves more. This practice not only reduces the risk of saying something inappropriate or damaging, but also sharpens your ability to communicate clearly and powerfully when you do choose to speak. To illustrate, consider Warren Buffett, often dubbed the Oracle of Omaha. Buffett is famous for his calm demeanor and deliberate speech. He listens more than he talks, carefully weighing his words before offering insights. This measured approach has earned him immense respect and influence in the financial world. His example shows that strategic silence combined with well-timed speech can amplify one's authority and effectiveness. Similarly, in sports, coaches and leaders use selective speech to motivate teams or manage pressure. They know when to deliver a powerful pep talk and when to let silence build focus and intensity. This balance keeps teams centered and ready for action, underscoring that communication is not just about words, but also about timing and emotional impact. In the political arena, Margaret Thatcher, known as the Iron Lady, was renowned for her precise and often pointed speech. She was not one to waste words, but rather chose them to deliver maximum impact. Her ability to hold back and strike with carefully chosen remarks helped her maintain authority and command respect, especially in challenging negotiations and debates. The art of selective speech is equally relevant in everyday social interactions. In conversations, thoughtful pauses before responding show respect and consideration, making others feel heard and valued. This can deepen relationships and foster trust. Conversely, constant interruption or over-talking can alienate people and diminish your social capital. On the flip side, failing to practice selective speech can have serious consequences. Oversharing, speaking impulsively, or failing to read the social cues often lead to misunderstandings, conflicts, or missed opportunities. The digital age, with its immediacy and permanent records, magnifies these risks. People who rush to post or comment without reflection often find themselves facing backlash or regret. Therefore, cultivating the discipline to choose words carefully is more important than ever. It enhances credibility, protects personal and professional interests, and builds stronger connections. Selective speech is not about silence for silence's sake, but about maximizing the power and impact of communication by speaking intentionally and listening attentively. In essence, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent is a fundamental skill that shapes success in politics, business, and personal life. It reflects maturity, strategic thinking, and emotional intelligence. The examples of leaders like Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Barack Obama, and Margaret Thatcher illustrate that selective speech is a cornerstone of effective leadership and influence. Personally, I believe that mastering this art elevates an individual's value in any context. It prevents unnecessary risks and misunderstandings while amplifying the power of every word spoken. In a world saturated with noise, the person who chooses their moments to speak carefully stands out as confident, wise, and in control. This approach not only safeguards one's reputation, but also builds lasting influence and respect. Ultimately, selective speech is a tool of empowerment. It allows individuals to navigate complex social landscapes with grace and strategic insight. It teaches us that silence is not weakness, but strength, and that sometimes the most powerful statement is made not through words, but through the careful choice to withhold them until the perfect moment arrives. Throughout history and in the modern world, there are numerous stories of individuals whose mastery of selective silence propelled them to remarkable success. The ability to know when to speak and when to remain silent has been a decisive factor for leaders in politics, business, and beyond. This strategic restraint not only preserved their power and influence, but often became the invisible force behind their achievements. Two particularly illuminating examples come to mind. One from the realm of politics with Abraham Lincoln, and another from the world of business with Warren Buffett. Both illustrate the profound impact of well-timed silence. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, is a classic example of a leader who understood the power of silence in turbulent times. Lincoln's presidency was marked by extraordinary challenges. The nation was deeply divided, and the Civil War threatened the very fabric of the United States. Amid this chaos, Lincoln was renowned for his calm demeanor and his ability to listen more than he spoke, carefully choosing his words to unite a fractured country. Far from being a man of impulsive declarations, Lincoln often paused, reflecting deeply before addressing the public or Congress. His speeches, including the Gettysburg Address, were carefully crafted but brief, carrying immense weight because of their conciseness and timing. One notable incident highlighting Lincoln's strategic silence was during the debates and tensions over the Emancipation Proclamation. Before formally announcing it, Lincoln kept his plans largely under wraps, aware that premature disclosure could provoke political backlash or undermine military strategy. This silence was not ignorance or indecision, but a deliberate tactic to gauge public opinion, manage the political landscape, and ensure the proclamation's success when finally unveiled. Lincoln's ability to balance speech and silence allowed him to navigate one of the most volatile periods in American history while maintaining control over the narrative. Lincoln's selective silence extended to his personal interactions as well. He was known for listening patiently to advisors and opponents alike, absorbing a wide range of views before formulating his policies. This measured approach not only built respect, but also ensured that when Lincoln spoke, his words carried undeniable authority. His silence was a strategic reserve, a tool for influence that underscored his leadership and earned him lasting admiration. Transitioning to the business world, Warren Buffett, often hailed as one of the greatest investors of all time, provides a compelling contemporary example of selective silence in action. Buffett's communication style is characterized by deliberate calmness, a tendency to speak only when necessary, and a deep understanding of the value of listening. His approach in meetings and public appearances reflects a mastery of restraint, using silence as a way to absorb information, reflect, and respond with precision. Buffett's investment decisions are famously slow and calculated, informed by years of research and contemplation rather than hasty judgments. In boardrooms and shareholder meetings, Buffett often listens extensively before offering his views, signaling a deep respect for data and analysis over impulsive opinions. This silence gives him a strategic advantage. While others rush to speak and reveal their positions, Buffett's measured contributions carry immense weight and can sway decisions or calm market fears. One illustrative story of Buffett's strategic silence occurred during the 2008 financial crisis. While many investors panicked and rushed to comment publicly, Buffett maintained a composed, measured communication style. He avoided speculative comments, choosing instead to issue carefully worded statements when necessary, reassuring stakeholders without contributing to market volatility. His silence, in the face of widespread noise and fear, allowed him to preserve credibility and position himself to capitalize on opportunities others overlooked. Buffett's restraint also extends to his personal dealings. He is famously guarded about his personal life and business strategies, sharing only what is essential at the right moment. This discretion protects his competitive advantages and prevents unnecessary scrutiny or pressure. Buffett's selective silence is not about withholding transparency, but about controlling the flow of information to maximize strategic benefit. Analyzing these two examples reveals common threads in how selective silence functions as a tool of power and influence. First, silence allows leaders to control their narrative. Both Lincoln and Buffett withheld information until the timing was optimal, thereby shaping public perception and decision-making to their advantage. This control over communication timing creates a sense of authority and foresight, positioning them as leaders rather than reactionaries. Second, silence generates respect and attention. When these leaders chose to speak, their words commanded greater impact because they were scarce and deliberate. This scarcity increased the perceived value of their statements, making audiences listen more carefully and respond more thoughtfully. In a world saturated with noise and chatter, the rare moments of speech stood out, enhancing their leadership presence. Third, silence functions as a protective shield. By not revealing plans or emotions prematurely, Lincoln and Buffett guarded against political attacks, market volatility, and personal vulnerabilities. This protection is crucial in high-stakes environments where information can be weaponized. Silence reduces risk by limiting the data adversaries can exploit. From a psychological standpoint, Silence also cultivates patience and emotional intelligence. Both Lincoln and Buffett demonstrated a capacity to resist impulsive reactions, choosing reflection over rashness. This composure is key to maintaining control in volatile situations and making sound decisions that withstand pressure. The lessons drawn from these stories are profound and widely applicable. First, embracing silence as a strategic choice rather than a default can transform leadership and communication. It is not about avoiding dialogue, but about mastering when and how to engage. Second, cultivating the patience to listen, observe, and reflect before speaking enhances credibility and influence. Third, understanding that silence itself communicates, whether it signals thoughtfulness, strength, or control, adds nuance to interpersonal and public interactions. In practical terms, these examples encourage leaders, professionals, and individuals alike to resist the urge to fill every moment with speech. Instead, they should develop an awareness of context, emotional tone, and the stakes involved. Learning to pause, withhold immediate response, and speak with precision can protect reputations, build trust, and create opportunities that impulsive communication might jeopardize. Moreover, selective silence is a skill that grows with experience and self-awareness. It requires confidence to trust that not every thought needs verbal expression and wisdom to discern the moments when silence will serve best. As shown by Lincoln and Buffett, this skill is less about isolation and more about engagement that is thoughtful, measured, and purposeful. Ultimately, these stories illustrate that silence is not a passive absence, but an active strategy that shapes power dynamics. Leaders who master this art gain a subtle yet formidable advantage, enabling them to navigate complexity with grace and effectiveness. The power of selective silence lies in its ability to elevate influence, safeguard interests, and communicate strength without uttering a word. This timeless lesson continues to resonate, proving that sometimes the most impactful voice is the one that chooses when not to speak. In a culture that often rewards constant communication and instant sharing, the dangers of speaking without careful thought can be profound and far-reaching. The consequences of saying too much or losing control over one's words can damage reputations, jeopardize careers, fracture relationships, and even bring down entire organizations. This is especially true in an age dominated by social media, where a single ill-considered comment can be broadcast globally within seconds and remain accessible indefinitely. The pitfalls of oversharing and uncontrolled speech are not theoretical concerns. History and contemporary events abound with examples that highlight the high stakes involved. One of the most immediate dangers of talking too much is the inadvertent disclosure of sensitive or confidential information, whether in politics, business, or personal contexts. Leaking details prematurely can undermine strategic plans, betray trust, and provide competitors or adversaries with ammunition. In corporate settings, executives who speak freely about unfinalized mergers, financial struggles, or internal conflicts risk losing shareholder confidence and market position. A famous example is the downfall of Enron in the early 2000s. While the company's collapse was rooted in financial fraud, some analysts point to a culture of reckless communication and boasting among executives that masked the underlying issues and delayed intervention. Publicly flaunting overconfidence through speech without substance created an illusion of stability, which, when shattered, contributed to one of the largest corporate scandals in history. Politicians are perhaps the most vulnerable to the hazards of unchecked speech. History is filled with instances where impulsive remarks or poorly phrased statements have derailed careers or sparked diplomatic crises. For instance, during the 2012 U.S. presidential campaign, Mitt Romney's offhand comment about 47% of Americans being dependent on government support and not paying taxes sparked widespread backlash. Though the comment was made in a private fundraiser and leaked, the damage was immediate and enduring. It alienated a significant portion of voters and painted Romney as out of touch. arguably contributing to his electoral defeat. This incident underscores how a momentary lapse in controlling speech, even in seemingly private settings, can have catastrophic public consequences. In the business world, executives tweeting or commenting impulsively on social media platforms often find themselves at the center of controversies that could have been avoided with greater restraint. Elon Musk, despite his immense success, has faced several legal and financial repercussions due to tweets that moved markets or made unverified claims. His 2018 tweet about taking Tesla private at $420 per share led to a Securities and Exchange Commission lawsuit, resulting in fines and temporary restrictions. Musk's experience illustrates how the immediacy and reach of modern communication channels can amplify the consequences of speaking without filtering or strategy. Social media, in particular, has transformed how individuals and public figures communicate, dramatically increasing the risk of overexposure and missteps. The pressure to remain visible and relevant encourages many to share thoughts impulsively, often without considering tone, context, or potential fallout. This phenomenon, sometimes called keyboard bravado, leads to statements that might be offensive, inaccurate, or revealing of personal vulnerabilities. The viral nature of online content means that a careless post can trigger widespread backlash, cyberbullying, or career damage before there's a chance for correction or clarification. The consequences of uncontrolled speech extend beyond public figures to everyday individuals, where a single misjudged comment can damage friendships, family relationships, or professional networks. Consider how heated arguments fueled by rapid, unfiltered responses often escalate conflicts rather than resolve them. Words spoken in haste or anger tend to leave lasting scars, eroding trust and goodwill. This is particularly problematic because, unlike spoken words that fade, written or recorded communications endure, resurfacing at unexpected times. The psychological toll of these speech wounds should not be underestimated. Individuals subjected to public shaming, backlash, or professional repercussions due to verbal missteps often experience anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal. In extreme cases, the fear of saying the wrong thing can lead to self-censorship, stifling creativity and authentic communication. Paradoxically, the very platforms designed to connect people can contribute to isolation when speech is mishandled. My personal perspective is that, in the era of social media and constant connectivity, practicing selective silence has become not only a strategic advantage, but a vital form of self-protection. The ability to pause before speaking or posting, to weigh the possible outcomes of words, and to recognize that sometimes silence communicates more effectively than speech is crucial. Silence shields individuals from the potential wounds inflicted by careless communication, those moments when words become liabilities rather than assets. This is not to suggest that people should avoid expressing themselves altogether. Rather, it is a call for mindfulness and intentionality in communication. By cultivating the habit of thoughtful silence, individuals create a buffer against impulsive mistakes and protect their reputations and relationships. In professional settings, this means understanding that not every thought or reaction needs to be voiced immediately. Sometimes the wisest course is to listen, reflect, and choose words carefully when the moment demands it. Historical lessons reinforce this point. The Watergate scandal, which ultimately led to President Nixon's resignation, was exacerbated by a series of ill-considered statements and attempts to mislead the public and investigators. The cascade of verbal missteps deepened suspicion and destroyed public trust. This episode illustrates how attempts to cover up wrongdoing through speech can worsen a crisis, demonstrating the destructive potential of unchecked communication. Similarly, in business, numerous CEOs have lost their jobs or seen their companies falter due to inappropriate or excessive communication. Tony Hayward, former CEO of BP during the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010, made several public remarks that appeared insensitive, including, "I want my life back." His words were widely criticized and damaged the company's image during a critical time. This shows how even in crisis management, careful speech or strategic silence can influence public perception and outcomes. In today's hyper-connected world, the stakes are even higher. The viral nature of online content means that a single tweet, comment, or video clip can spread instantly, reaching millions and becoming part of the permanent digital record. This permanence magnifies the consequences of verbal missteps, making it imperative for individuals to develop discipline and restraint. Ultimately, the perils of talking too much and losing control of one's words reveal a fundamental truth. Speech is powerful, but that power can cut both ways. Words can build bridges or burn them down, create opportunities or close doors. The ability to harness this power through selective silence and thoughtful communication is an essential skill for navigating the complexities of modern life. From a personal standpoint, embracing silence as a protective and strategic tool helps maintain dignity, preserve relationships, and safeguard professional credibility. It allows individuals to avoid the pitfalls of impulsive speech and the long-lasting wounds it can inflict. In a world where anyone can broadcast their thoughts instantly to a global audience, choosing when and how to speak becomes a defining element of personal and professional success. Therefore, the discipline of managing speech is not merely about self-restraint. It is about survival and thriving in an environment where words can have immediate and lasting impact. This perspective calls for a shift from the reactive urge to respond immediately toward a more measured, intentional approach that values silence as a form of strength and protection. By doing so, individuals can protect themselves from unnecessary harm and position themselves for more effective and influential communication when the time is truly right. Mastering the art of selective silence is more than just an abstract concept. It requires intentional practice and the development of specific habits to recognize when to speak and when to hold back. The ability to discern the appropriate moments to voice your thoughts versus the times to remain quiet can dramatically improve the quality of your communication and increase your influence in both personal and professional settings. Unlike spontaneous conversation, this skill demands mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking. The first step in applying selective silence effectively is developing situational awareness. This means paying close attention to the context of the interaction, the emotional tone of the conversation, and the stakes involved. For example, in a high-pressure meeting, immediately responding to every comment might seem natural, but could lead to missteps or reveal too much information. Instead, pause, listen actively, and assess whether your contribution will add value or potentially complicate matters. Asking yourself questions such as, is this the right moment to speak, or will my words clarify or confuse the situation, helps build a mental filter that guides your communication choices. Another critical aspect is understanding the power dynamics at play. When interacting with superiors, clients, or competitors, silence can signal respect, confidence, or strategic withholding. Conversely, in collaborative or brainstorming sessions, speaking up is essential to contribute ideas and demonstrate engagement. Balancing these dynamics requires practice and a nuanced understanding of social cues, including body language, tone of voice, and group energy. Recognizing when others expect input or when silence might be more effective is key. Developing the habit of intentional pausing before speaking is one of the most practical exercises for cultivating selective silence. This can be as simple as counting to 3 in your mind before responding in a conversation. This brief pause creates space for reflection, reduces impulsive reactions, and allows you to formulate more thoughtful and impactful statements. Over time, this pause becomes a natural part of your communication style, enhancing clarity and authority. Active listening is equally important. When you focus on truly understanding the speaker rather than planning your next response, you gather valuable information that informs when and what to say. Listening also demonstrates respect and builds rapport, which can increase your influence. Practicing mindfulness techniques, such as concentrating fully on the present moment during conversations, can improve listening skills and help you recognize when silence will be most beneficial. Incorporating moments of silence in everyday interactions is another way to strengthen this skill. This might mean deliberately choosing not to fill every pause in a conversation or using silence as a response to open-ended questions. Such strategic silences encourage others to elaborate or reflect, often leading to deeper insights or revealing hidden concerns. For example, in negotiations, withholding immediate answers can create pressure for the other party to clarify or adjust their position, turning silence into a tactical advantage. Setting personal communication goals can also foster the practice of selective silence. For instance, challenge yourself to speak less in meetings, but contribute more meaningfully when you do. Reflect after interactions on whether your speech was necessary and effective, or if moments of silence might have served better. Journaling these experiences can increase self-awareness and help identify patterns for improvement. Role-playing exercises offer practical training opportunities. Engage with trusted friends or colleagues in scenarios where you practice withholding speech strategically or using silence to influence outcomes. Receiving feedback on your timing and the impact of your words versus silence provides valuable insights. Over time, these exercises build confidence and intuition for real-world situations. Technology can also support this practice. Recording yourself during presentations or conversations and reviewing the footage helps identify tendencies to overspeak or interrupt. This self-observation enables targeted adjustments. Additionally, apps focused on mindfulness and communication skills can reinforce habits that promote thoughtful speech and strategic silence. From my perspective, cultivating the ability to balance speech and silence is essential for anyone seeking to improve their personal and professional effectiveness. In an age where rapid-fire communication is often the norm, consciously choosing when to speak sets you apart as thoughtful and deliberate. This skill enhances your credibility, reduces the risk of miscommunication, and increases your ability to influence and lead. Moreover, selective silence is a form of self-respect and respect for others. It acknowledges that not every thought requires expression and that silence can create space for more meaningful dialogue. This restraint fosters deeper connections and helps navigate complex social dynamics with grace. In leadership roles, this skill becomes even more critical. Leaders who master selective silence inspire confidence by demonstrating control and presence. Their words carry weight because they are used judiciously. They listen to their teams, process information carefully, and speak to motivate, clarify, or direct at the most impactful moments. For individuals, developing this skill also supports emotional intelligence by promoting self-awareness and regulation. It helps prevent reactive outbursts and encourages thoughtful engagement, contributing to healthier relationships and better conflict resolution. In conclusion, the journey to mastering selective silence is a continuous process that blends self-awareness, strategic thinking, and disciplined practice. By developing habits such as intentional pausing, active listening, and mindful reflection, anyone can enhance their communication effectiveness and personal power. In today's fast-paced and noisy world, the ability to choose silence wisely is not just advantageous, it is essential for meaningful connection and sustained success. The power of silence, as explored throughout this discussion, emerges not simply as the absence of speech, but as a deliberate, strategic tool wielded by the most effective leaders, negotiators, and influencers across history and into the modern age. From Machiavelli's keen observations about selective silence as an essential element of power, to the examples of figures like Abraham Lincoln, Steve Jobs, and Warren Buffett, the consistent lesson is clear. Knowing when to speak and when to remain silent is fundamental to maintaining control, cultivating respect, and achieving success. Silence protects strength by limiting exposure. It preserves secrecy, creating an aura of mystery that unsettles opponents and invites curiosity rather than premature judgment. Silence enables a leader or individual to maintain psychological advantage, forcing others to guess intentions, which can lead to hesitation or errors on their part. Furthermore, silence sharpens the impact of the words spoken, lending gravity and meaning to carefully chosen communication. This dynamic shows that influence is often as much about what is left unsaid as what is declared openly. The dangers of failing to master this art have also been made clear. Speaking without thought can lead to inadvertent disclosures, misunderstandings, and damage that is difficult or impossible to repair. In an age dominated by social media and instantaneous communication, careless words can spread rapidly, amplifying mistakes and making silence an even more vital shield. Practicing selective silence is, therefore, not just about tactical advantage, but about protecting oneself from the vulnerabilities that come with unchecked speech. The practical applications of this art are vast, touching politics, business, personal relationships, and everyday interactions. Whether in high-stakes negotiations or casual conversations, the ability to listen attentively, reflect deeply, and choose moments for expression wisely enhances one's credibility and authority. Developing this skill requires awareness, patience, and discipline, but the payoff is immense. Increased influence, stronger relationships, and greater control over one's narrative and environment. Ultimately, embracing the power of selective silence is an invitation to deepen self-awareness and improve communication on multiple levels. It challenges the modern impulse to fill every silence with words and instead celebrates the strength found in thoughtful restraint. Those who master this balance stand apart as leaders who command attention not through volume, but through the meaningfulness of their voice and the wisdom of their silence. It is essential now, more than ever, to begin practicing this art. Start by cultivating the habit of pausing before speaking, listening with intention, and reflecting on when silence might serve better than speech. Recognize that every moment of silence is an opportunity, not a void to be feared, but a space to be honored. Through consistent practice, silence transforms from mere quietness into a powerful instrument of influence. Machiavelli once remarked, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." In the context of silence and speech, this reminds us that mastering when to hold our tongue is a mark of wisdom, one that should be seized proactively. The power of silence is a timeless force. Those who embrace it today position themselves for lasting impact and success. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you've learned even one new thing about the power of selective silence, imagine how that one change can ripple through your life, giving you greater control over your influence, your relationships, and your success. Remember, silence isn't about hiding or being passive. It's a strategic choice that can protect your strength, sharpen your impact, and transform the way others perceive you. Leaders like Machiavelli, Lincoln, Jobs, and Buffett didn't just stumble upon this skill by accident. They cultivated it carefully. And so can you. If you found this video valuable, please take a moment right now to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share it with your friends, family, or colleagues who might need to hear this message. And if you want to show extra support, consider using the super thanks or donate button below. It helps us keep producing quality content just like this. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out on future videos where we unpack more hidden tools of power, influence, and success. Join the community of thinkers and doers who are ready to change the way they communicate and lead. Before you go, here's a powerful reminder from Machiavelli himself. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Let this inspire you to start practicing the art of selective silence today, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Your voice has power, but your silence might have even more. Thanks again for watching. Stay thoughtful, stay powerful, and I'll see you in the next video.